All right, welcome today to this overview of the modular assessments. We will do our level best to send you off, able to use them and ready to go. Okay. This is, interestingly, this is actually a webinar that's sponsored through the School Improvement Initiative, which is also sponsored by the New Hampshire Department of Ed. We have a couple of different initiatives with the NHDOE, and this is one of them. So we need to thank them profusely for letting us provide this professional development for free to you, which is our favorite way to provide professional development. Just a short thank you to all of you, because Ann and I both have been talking to a lot of principals and a lot of teachers, and life is rough right now. Morale is low. There's empty positions. There's empty buses. It's kind of a little bit rough. So thanks for hanging in there. and yeah. We're going to use the chat today, so feel free to write in to the chat section. You can also, if you want to raise your hand, use the emojis to raise your hand. We can just chat. There's not so many of us in here. And if you have, you feel free to put anything in the chat that you want to share with the rest of the group. That's fine too. And then just so you know, at the end of this session, I'm going to share in the chat 2 links. One will be a link to a feedback survey, and the other will be a link to the resource folder. In addition to getting them at the end in the chat, you'll also get an email tomorrow, okay, with those resources. Sally, don't worry about it. We can imagine what you look like. Sally's apologizing because she can't turn her camera on.
Thanks.
You look great. Okay.
I'm going to turn mine off actually. So, but now you know what I look like. So we're all set.
Ann's bandwidth is not so great where she's at. So she's going to turn them off, but I'm really happy to have her here today because she's going to help me out as the data and assessment director with Heather. Okay, I'm Karen. I am the PD director at Demonstrated Success, and I've been here for a bit. We started the company, actually Ann, Mike, and I started Demonstrated Success together 5 years ago. It's been wonderful, and I'm happy to be working with Ann today because she's working a little less, on the brink of retirement. Yay! So we're together, which is fun. Okay, this is just gentle little reminder, right? And we all know this already. Assessment isn't just to audit what's going on, but to actually do something about it, right? So we all agree. Hoping that you'll leave here with all of these questions answered. Why use them? What are the different options for using them? How can they help you to understand or operationalize your grade level standards, and how you get there in the portal and so on. Okay. Here's our agenda. The first thing we'll talk about is the benefits. Jump in, Ann.
If there are any questions that anybody has coming into it, you can just put them in the chat and we'll add them to the list of things to go over.
Please do. That's awesome. Yes. Okay. The modulars are short. They're mostly between 8 and 12 questions. And they are, unlike the New Hampshire SAS, it's not a responsive assessment. So all the questions are the same, which is good because then we can do an item analysis. They're all based and aligned with Common Core. They are all focused on the domains. Right? So when you look at the standards, for instance, key ideas and details, and under literary text or informational text, there's informational text and literary text questions for math, algebra. Help, Ann, throw one out for math.
Operations and algebraic thinking and fractions. Can you hear me? I'm worried that I'm coming in and out.
I can hear you.
There's fractions, each of those numbers in base 10.
We'll look more When
geometry. So there's questions posed. You'll see the lists.
Okay, and you're going out in and
Go ahead.
out a little bit, Anne, so we'll use you sparingly.
Oh.
You can use
Okay,
the
sorry.
modulars. It's okay. You can use the modulars throughout the whole year, anytime. And we have some recommendations around that. And you can choose to give students in your class current grade level modulars, or you can go back or forward or do whatever you need to do, which is not something you can do with the SAS or the interim. Okay, so the modulars are really powerful, and that's a lot of the reason that we've done so much PD to try to get folks to use them in the state. They certainly can help, measure student achievement. They're scored automatically. And the results are immediate, right? So that's awesome. You don't have to wait like the summative assessments or even the NWEA, right? Sometimes you have to wait until the testing window is closed. So this is automatic. You can use them to evaluate program impact, and the way that we do that, when you're using a particular program, like, so let's say you're using Engage New York, and you keep giving the students the assessments within your curricular program. What you wind up assessing is how well students are learning that program, as opposed to sort of objective Common Core standards, right? Because that program has language and a style attached to it and a sequence attached to it that may or may not always align with the types of language and questions that kids are going to get when they take the SAS or they take the modulars. So it gives you a broader way to evaluate whether how your kids are responding to that program. Okay, and whether that program that you're using or the tools that you're using are going to help you achieve, and I hate to say it this way, but higher scores on your state assessment, because ultimately that's your accountability measure.
Well, and not only higher scores on the tests, but whether they are actually learning what the Common Core says, which is what they're expected to be learning.
Right.
So it's not just the test, but.
Thank you, Anne.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's perfect. Jump in. They can obviously help you determine.
I will.
Resource needs, and provide really good detailed information about, again, language, structure, images, all sorts of the little details that you can find out when you do item analysis to help to drive instruction and to vary items that you give to your students. And then this last piece is something that we've worked on a lot. You can use the results on the items to really bring them back to the standards and look at the standards and look at the way those standards are represented in the modular items. And by following that trail, right, you come to a stronger understanding of how those standards are operationalized and what they mean at each grade level.
And very often, and I hope I'm not coming in and out, but I go to a school and say I'm meeting with fifth grade teachers, and I show them one of the questions from the modulars, and they go, well, we don't teach that. And I'm like, well, that's part of the Common Core. So you especially with math, if your math, you kind of teach what your math program says, whether it's really aligned or not, you don't know unless you really know the standards. So using these questions can really help teachers understand the standard.
Okay, so for our students, thanks, Anne. For our students, obviously it's exposure to the assessments, which is super important. Just think about that. If your kids have taken modulars throughout the year, they're totally used to the format, the visuals, everything, the systems, the technology. Helps them.
Used to be fifth. All right, because we went.
Oh, good. All right. It allows them to practice the technology in the system. take away barriers to that testing. And this is a square that we wanted to share with you. This is just one class over a period of time and how their scores went up when they used the modulars. All right, so from 2014-15 till 2019, they grew by 30-35% in their proficiency in their summative assessment data.
And the different, oh, yes, can you hear me? The difference was, she wasn't using the modulars in 14-15 or 15-16. And then that next year, 16-17, she started using them. And that's when her score jumped. And it stayed up there because she started understanding the standards better.
And the kids were, had more practice with the assessment. They were getting more exposure and broader exposure than just their curriculum materials. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. You agree, Anne?
I do agree.
Okay, good. So you can use them. So if you're doing Eureka, right, and you get to the end of your assessment, you can substitute the end of your unit. You could substitute a modular assessment. You could, the end of your writing unit, right? You could substitute in one of the writing prompts, one of the writing modulars, and use that. Okay, so same with reading, so at the end of any unit, you can substitute these assessments in. You can use a pre-assessment, post-assessment, they can be used as that. I think this is really cool. You can set them up as an assignment in the portal, just as a formative assessment that kids can take either immediately, they can take it at home, they can take it, you can schedule it for a future date and put it in your Google Classroom. Use it as a practice test. And I love this one too. Individual questions can be used as a question of the day, right? So for morning work, when kids come in, you can project a question of the day or end of the day or any. Okay. So just to bring back that domain language, as we said this earlier, but this is just an example. So the modulars are aligned with the domains in the Common Core standards. So operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations base 10, those are domains in math. And then we have informational text, literary text, speaking and listening, and writing for the domains in ELA. And so this is,
ELA, yeah.
So these are going to be your ELA modular assessment options. And these windows, these images will come in per grade level. Okay, so you can see this is 3rd grade, and in actuality, it stays the same, 3rd through 8th. So there's an A form and a B form. Sometimes there's a C form. What you do need to know is that if you're going to try to use them as pre and post assessments, what you need to know is that you're not always going to get the same skills again, right? So you're better off using an identical assessment and changing it slightly if you need to do pre and post. We, in partnership with the Department of Ed, have created some documentation to help you navigate to make the choices around which modulars to use. And I'll show you that in a little bit. So anyway, this is like same.
Can I clarify?
Yes.
Just clarify something in there while you click through these?
Yeah.
So if there's an A, a B, and maybe a C, you would think you could give them A as a pre and B as a post. But the material in each of the tests is very different. So what we suggest is that you say give them A for the pretest. Then look, my connection is unstable, it's telling me. So then look and see where they needed some help, work on whatever you can. Okay, work on whatever the changes are needed, and then go back and give them A again. So you're not going to review the answers to A until after the second time you give it, because they can be very different from A to B.
Great. Thanks, Anne.
So just, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and ELA, they're all the same, right? Oh, there's a C.
Okay, so now we have math. and they're not all the same all the time. And Anne's going to point out where they're different. But you can see
Yeah.
measurement data and geometry, numbers and operations base 10, numbers and operations fractions, and operations and algebraic thinking. And there's an A and a B, and there's even a C over there.
Even a D on one of these, yeah. Wow.
The number system, that's new. Statistics and
Yeah,
probability.
once you get to 6th grade
Yeah,
and 7th and 8th.
statistics. Got it.
Yeah.
Ratio and proportions is new, 7th, 8th.
6th, 7th, and 8th are similar because the standards really change when you get to 6th, 7th, and 8th.
So we have science here, and I'm just going to go back one. So the science modulars are listed under grade 5, but they include grade 3, 4, and 5 topics. And here's the science for 6, 7, and 8. Again, they're middle school topics, but you take the test in 8. And then there's 11.
And if you look at, like, if you can look at the first 4th grade, the first one on the left, that's it says start the interim, earth science, space science, earth systems 1, and then it says 4-ESS2. That's a 4th grade test. The next one down is a 3rd grade test. So that's how you can tell. So, 4th grade teachers and 3rd grade teachers should be jumping in on this.
Cool. See, I'm so happy to have you. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, it's very useful. Yeah.
Okay. So we have in here a folder where I'm going to show you now the grade level resources that are put together. And these were created as a team with the New Hampshire Department of Ed and our team. And a lot of this was created by Annie Wallace at the DOE, so we appreciate her intensely. I'm going to use the 3rd grade as a demo. Are you seeing a list of documents in Google? Yes? Okay, good. So I'm just going to show you here. This is a spreadsheet that was created by Annie. And what she's done, this is unbelievable. She has taken each modular assessment and listed it. So here we have measurement data, and this is all 3rd grade, right? And geometry, form A. The first question covers the standard 3 geometry, grade 3 geometry 1. The focus area is quadrilaterals. The common misunderstanding or area of challenge, think that a square is not a rectangle. Okay, so it gets to exactly, she tells you exactly what's being assessed. And then these are the technological, requirement, the type, and some notes. So she says there's use of a drawing tool, classifying quadrilaterals. So she's done this for every single item in all of the modular assessments, which I think is kind of brilliant. Yep. So that when you are planning pre and post and you're trying to choose an assessment to use at the end of a unit, you don't have to go in and go through every single assessment. So thanks, Annie Wallace.
Yes, that was a lot of work.
So let me go back. I'm going to show you. So we have each one of those for each grade level, and it's just for math. Sorry. Hopefully they've brought in a new ELA consultant, but she only started a couple weeks ago, and maybe she'll create the same, or maybe we'll get there. So this is also 3rd grade, and I think that Heather and Anne created these documents where you have, here's the 3rd grade modular options, right? Then on the next page, These are the tests, right? So the next few pages are gonna, what? Ann?
There it is. It was slow to come up, but maybe that was just on my
Yeah.
computer.
So these are the math
ahead.
modulars, right, for third grade. And then on this next page, we have for the math modulars numbers of and types of questions. This tells you that in operations for algebraic operations and algebraic thinking, okay, there's 2 multiple choice and 7 open-ended questions in this modular A assessment. In the modular B assessment for operations and algebraic thinking, there's 6 multiple choice and 3 open questions, and so on and so forth. And so I guess there's even a module, I think there's a D version in operations and algebraic thinking. And if you go across, you can see that there's in numbers and operations in grade 3, there's only a modular A and a modular B, right? And that it's blank. So that's pretty self-explanatory.
And if you, can you?
Yes, jump in.
Yep. And if you look at operations and algebraic thinking with the 4 different tests, modular D is mostly multiple choice. So when you're really assessing your students and you really want to get into what they know, you probably would give A, because that only has 2 multiple choice, and then and the open-ended ones will really help you see what's going on in their brains a little more. So that's the way you would use this chart.
Now, this now lists the forms A, B, C, and D. If we just look up here, right? So we have operations and algebraic thinking form A, B, C, and D. Okay. And then across the top, you can see the standards. And what this shows you is which standards are assessed. So in operations and algebraic thinking form A, OA1 is assessed, OA3, OA4, OA5, 6, 8, and 9. Okay, and that's, you can read
So if
that.
you know what you've been teaching, you match it up, to what's being tested. So
pretty cool. Oh, and then the
I must really
coloring,
be coming in and
a little bit. You're okay. A little bit.
Yes.
So just to emphasize this, there are, and I'm sure many of you know this already, for math, there's major, supporting, and additional standards. The major standards are the biggest focus on our state assessments, right? So you can see the green coloring for major, those are all major. The yellow, base 10, numbers in base 10 over here, those are additional standards, and supporting standards are blue. So measurement, data and measurement over here, and geometry over here. So you can see that as well. And then the last part of this document, and again, there's one of these for math for each grade level 3 through 8, there are demo questions. Okay, so for each domain, there's at least one demo question.
And it's also for ELA at the second half of the document is the same material for ELA.
I'm gonna go all the way down. Okay, there's the types.
And there we start the ELA.
So the other document that was on a spreadsheet that shows you and sort of explicitly, talks about each item and exactly what's being assessed, that was made by the Department of Ed. That's for math only right now. But these documents are for both, okay, by grade level. And the link that I'm sharing with you at the end of the session will take you to a folder with all of this information in it, which is kind of great. All right. All right, I'm going to go back. You guys doing okay? Questions? Okay.
I don't hear any questions. I don't see, nobody's been typing in questions, but definitely please type them in if you've got them.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the assessment. How do we look at the modulars? And we do that through the assessment viewing application. So in terms of how you do this, it's easy. You go to the portal. And by the way, I might try to go live in a little bit. It might be a little messy. If it's messy, I'll only do it once. And if it's not messy, I'll try it a couple times. So you're going to choose school, choose test administration. And then you're going to go to the assessment viewing application. You're going to log in. I'm not Heather Jenkins. I have used her slides and her ID.
This is what you would do before you determine what you need, which assessment you want to give. You would go in and look at these questions this way.
So you would select a grade level. This is what we saw earlier, right? So we can see what our options are, and you would choose a modular to review, and then you would review it. I'm going to go live real quick because I'm going to try it. I'm feeling confident. So let me go up here and go to assessment viewing application. Here you go. Enter password. So this is real time. I will have gone in, I will have decided I am a 5th grade teacher. I would like to use the informative A assessment. And now I get to view it. Welcome to your test. Thank you. And here we go. So now I can go through and I can view it and I can sort of take it and know what I'm doing.
This is also how you can display it on the board. If you just want to use it as a problem of the day, you could go through, or you could go through it with your classroom. You could just give it to them to do in the classroom, although the reading's a little harder because you've got to scroll through it. But
you could do it
use
together.
the assessment viewing application to display it on the board.
Yeah.
Yes, together it would be great.
Together would be great on your what are the boards called? Your fancy board.
The whiteboards.
No,
whiteboards,
Promethean boards.
Yeah.
If you have them.
Yeah.
Or your document readers or all the amazing things that we have. Okay. So that was the assessment viewing.
Yeah. We have a question.
Oh, good.
We have a question. Can you print them? No, you're not supposed to print them. They are Cambium has them
Copyrighted.
Copyrighted, I guess. So we're not. Yeah, we're
I
not
can
supposed to
weigh in
print them.
I can weigh in a little bit. This is Melissa White from the DOE.
Melissa.
And so, hi. So yes, modular and interim assessment items are secure test items, and they are not allowed to be copied, reproduced. You shouldn't show them. It's okay to use the modulars with the assessment viewing application with your students, but other than that, and you want to make sure that everybody that has access to these secure test items has gone through the test training that is in TIDE.
Indeed.
Right.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay. So as we were saying a little earlier, you know, you can present these as a question of the day. You can just do it right from your screen. You can also give a modular assessment as an assignment to students in the portal. You can work through questions together. As an assignment in the portal, obviously it's done in the portal. You do not have to proctor it though. So it's like they might have a link that they can go to do it, and they can work independently, which also means they can do it at home. Whoops, let me just go back.
We have another question also.
Great.
Everyone can see the question, but what? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We have a literacy program in my building. Would the modular be a good pre and post assessment for the program? About how long do the modulars take for students to complete? So I would say, I mean, that varies a lot. And what would you say about the math modulars?
The math modulars take about 30 to 40 minutes,
Yeah.
and the ELA are similar. I mean,
Yeah.
class period, I would say. And they would be good for pre and post assessments. And if a lot of times teachers feel that they're not good because they don't match what your program is doing. And that's when you start questioning, you know, is the program doing what we want it to do? Is it teaching the Common Core?
Yes.
And that you'd have to do an analysis to figure that out.
And you know, the
But
ELA
yes, they would be good for pre and post.
And the ELA assessments are broad enough to be very applicable. Like, so you're looking at informative writing, informational text, narrative. Like it's broad, so it's going to be applicable to your unit. Okay. So this is proctored modular assessments. You can create an active session where you actually proctor it. Like you have to, the kids have tickets and you're there and you're proctoring it. You can do it in the moment, but you can also schedule an upcoming session. Like I was saying, proctoring means you need to be there and admit students. So I think this is really neat. As test taking sessions or assignments, you go into the portal and you're going to choose test administration. And you're going to go to the test administrator interface. You're going to log in. And this is where you conduct that. Okay. And I think what I will do now is go live again just to get in there. In the reporting portal. So I am going to go back over here and I'm going to go to administering tests. And here you can see this is live. This is kind of fake. All right. But you can see here that there are several active sessions on the left-hand side. These are the active sessions, tests that are open right now, okay? And then you can see here how I could schedule upcoming sessions. And here we have home assignments, and I'm just gonna walk through this a little bit. So you'd go to the right over here, and you choose a school, and there's no data that's going to be revealed here. So I can just, let's say I'll go to Grinnell, pretend for a second. You will not have to choose a school because you won't have a choice. And then you can create the assignment for a start date and end date. You can choose it. User plus, here's your modular assessment. If I am a fourth grade teacher, I would like for them to do the opinion writing. I'm going to name the session opinion pre-test. And for the test reason, I'm going to say pre-test. And what I would suggest for you, and this is something that's kind of important, if your whole professional learning team, like your grade level team, decides to administer the modular and you want to look at that data together as part of your PLC process, just remember to all choose the same test reason down here. Because if you don't choose the same test reason as your colleagues, your data is not going to come out aggregated so that you can't look at it as a whole fourth grade team. Okay. And did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's true. And it's picking the correct one doesn't really matter. If it's October and you give the winter test, you know, it's going to show you the date. So it doesn't really matter. I suggest always picking unassigned.
That's good.
Everybody picks unassigned. That way the data will be aggregated at that date.
That's great. And so here's, so you copy this, right? So I would copy it and then I could paste it into an email. I can paste it into Google Classroom. I can do whatever I want to help kids access it. Okay. All right. So that was a little live journey. Moving right along, we'll talk a little bit about reporting. Your results are available right away. You can look at the standards. You can also look right down to the item level. And again, you know, you look, and I always think about it in terms of a PLC cycle. So you might look at the data as a 4th grade team. You might respond by looking at the kids that missed some of the teaching or maybe don't have mastery of specific standards or items, and you can divide up the 4th grade students, you know, into small groups, larger groups, whatever. Do some reteaching, digging deeper. And I'm going to show you a little bit about reporting, although I'm not going to go live because I don't want to wind up looking at any of these test data. So to look at the results, you go to reporting. And this is what it looks like. It's just like the New Hampshire SAS, right? So over here, you can see where that red box is. This highlights the 5 items where students did the best, and this highlights the 5 items that they didn't do so well. So that's easy to look at. And then we have all of the items to the right. You can always click on the live link item to see that item and the corresponding domain, the cluster, the standard, and the correct answer. And you can also look at individual scores. So if you look on the left here, just to show you what this means, do you see where it says the word district, school, and class? There's a corresponding colored bar, sort of slightly catty corner. The top bar is the district results. The second bar is the school results, and the last bar is your class results. Under that, where you see those scale scores, 633, 665, those are individual student scores that are listed underneath, and you can go across and actually see, okay, for this, you know, for Joe Smiley, he got a 1, I'm going to go all the way across actually to where the red box is. He didn't get the first item. He didn't get the second or the third. He got the 4th. He got the 5th, right? So on and so forth. I'm going to pause just so you can look at that for a second.
This is also,
You go.
while you're thinking, I'm going to interrupt your thinking. So for the 5 items on which the students did the best, you can look at those and go, oh yes, that's right. I know I taught that. I know it went well. And for the 5 items on which the students did not do well, you could look at that and go, okay, I said something wrong that day because the kids didn't get it, or that was the day the substitute was here. So I guess I have to redo that little section, but it becomes very clear overall what they understand and what they don't. If you look at question number, let's see, oh my God, it's so small. Question number 19, 0.05% of them got that right. So practically none of them got that right. So if you were live, you would click on that question and go, what was that question? Look at the question and go, oh gosh, I never teach that even remotely. Or, you know, I was sick that day, or all the kids were sick that day, or whatever it was. But you should go in and analyze the issue. Why? Oh my God, that's a ridiculous question. Or it's too hard for my kids, or something. Whatever you decide, but you should go in and do some analysis on it.
it's really fun. Anne and I have gone into schools, and to give credit where credit is due, Anne started it and taught me how to do it, but printing out the items and then putting the percent of kids that got that item correct. And then with the team, with your grade level team, up on the board, on the walls, like putting those items up and doing like a gallery walk, and then having a conversation within your team about the items and what you're observing. And it really gives you a lot of insight. So just this, you can print out these reports in Excel and organize them any way. You can combine them with different data, right? If you have like kid grids and stuff, you can print them out to report that kind of data. And just to explain a little bit about this report, it's a little small. I'm not sure you can see it. You have your aggregate scores on the top bar. So your average, so I'm just gonna all the way to the left, the first number under scale score says 644. And what that means is that was the average scale score at the district level. The average scale score at the school level was 644, and the average scale score for the classroom was 646. So that tells you that. And then in terms of the performance percents, the percent all the way to the left is low. That's what you need to know, and it goes up. So we have low all the way to the left, and then we have approaching, and then we have on or above. And these are the numbers, working our way to the right there on that top row. These are the numbers of students that fell into each of those categories. Underneath, you have individual student scores down there. So imagine a student name to the left of each of those scale scores. So that's how it's going to look in Excel. Okay.
And can you go back one time? One minute. Sorry. One of the things that you have to be careful of is when you look at the results, you go, oh, it's only Johnny there that's low. So I'll just work with Johnny. I'll figure out what he didn't know and I'll help him. But if you actually figured out what the percentage of correct points are for one of the other students, like let's say, I can't see them well enough to tell, but they could have a 40% or 35% correct and they're approaching. So even though that would be considered approaching for the test, you still want, what is it that they missed? If they got 10 out of 12 wrong, I still want to look.
Mm-hmm.
So don't just look at the approaching and low.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, that's all I had to say.
All right. So there's also some other resources on the portal, and I'm just going to show you how to access those. You just go to where it says resources, and then you can put in, these are performance level descriptors, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you can put in the PLD or performance level descriptors, and for every grade level, for all the standards, there's a description of a below proficient, approaching, proficient, and highly proficient. So I would think that those were some really useful documents to have. And I might print them out and put them in my professional learning community binder to have at the handy. So this is math. And again, you have access to all of these, but they're also on the portal and you can look at them. And this is for science, for elementary. And then there's also, they provide item type tutorials. So again, under resources, and you can put in tutorials. I don't know if you can see right there. Yep. And they'll show you how to work through different items. It's the technical, open-ended or fill in, or it'll give you a tutorial on all of the different item types. All right, we have a couple minutes. We can have some wrap up. I want you guys to write in and ask your questions, please, because we would love to answer them. I also just want to show you what we have available for you. So this is actually live, and I'm going to go to our website over here. And it's going to take you, that link will take you, this is our website. Go to webinars and workshops. And if you go to data coaching, New Hampshire Department of Ed, you will see here the different workshops and webinars we have that will focus on modulars, will focus on the SAS, focus on data use, creating data culture. So we did, on September 24th, we had a leveraging data to inform instruction, and that was SAS focused. Right now, as we speak, a few of our team members are in Concord with a group doing PLCs and MTSS. There's one in Hampton on October 15th. It's a full day on mostly on PLCs, and you know, folks leave with a binder of PLC protocols. And here's the upcoming webinars. So understanding standards and depth of knowledge for different grade levels, PLC protocols. It's a series, so you don't have to go in person. We've broken it up into an hour-long series over, I think it's the next 6 months, starting next month or later this month. Okay, so you can register right on our website. And then the only other place I wanted to show you is there's also school improvement webinars and sessions. So these are some of those that are coming up. And you can come in and register there. We have, this is today's obviously. And then next week, these have been really fun. It's a social emotional learning for adults, for teachers, for principals, and it's really focused on helping teachers to think about, especially during this time, how to bring all of their social emotional skills to bear so that they can be present for their kids and be the person basically that they want to be in the classroom and professionally. So those are available to you. And
We have a question.
good. Let's hear it.
Yes. It's do you have to do the roster uploads in order to assign modulars? And you do not. The rosters are only for reporting. They don't affect students taking the test at all. So you do not have to roster them.
Great.
And we have another one. I just tried logging on and I received a message that I am not a certified proctor. Is that because I'm an instructional coach with no classes? No, that's because you have to take the certification process. Can you maybe go there, Karen?
Sure.
If you go to the online, sorry.
Mhm. Here.
So if you haven't done the certification process first, it takes about 30 minutes. You will not be able to do anything. So where is it there?
Where to go?
Scroll down a little. Scroll down a little.
Test administration certification.
You have to do that in order to administer the test.
Is this, so Anne, the
So that is why.
PA certification course?
Yes, I actually last year you were supposed to do both. And actually, Melissa, do you know what's going on?
You do not need to do the remote certification course because you're probably not going to be administering any tests remotely. They just still have them on there, but you should do the TA certification, test administrator certification.
Okay.
If you click on
Okay.
Tide, I think it will take you there when you log into
Okay.
Tide. And anyone really that's accessing or handling any of the test materials should take the test administrator certification, even if it's a proctor within your room who's not necessarily looking at test results. If you set them to proctor, they can't see student results or anything like that, but it does kind of go over all of the testing security and explains Tide and administration a little bit. So it's a good thing to take.
This is an interesting
it
question
is.
from Sally.
So we have another question.
Melissa, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any plans to?
Are there any plans to write?
I'm going.
Go
Write
ahead.
and include modular assessments for those subjects such as music and art that are not included in programs such as SAS. And then in parentheses, Sally writes, a teacher can dream. Yeah.
No, probably not at this
Yeah.
time. I think it's just going to continue to be for ELA, math, and science.
Sorry, Sally.
Another dream is to make assessments for first and second. But again, we can dream.
So you can actually set the students up, like if you had second graders that you wanted to take the modulars, you can set them up to do that. That's, that can be done. And they would just be testing off grade level. Same
They
with
can
if
take-
you're looking at that, same if you're doing like the science, if you're looking at that and you're like, wait, I want my 3rd or my 4th graders, they can take the 5th grade science interims and modulars. That's not a problem. Same with 6th and 7th grade, taking the 8th grade one or even taking one down.
All right.
That is right. Any more questions? Yeah, about, I mean, usually there are questions about rostering, a lot of questions about rostering or questions about what's the difference between a modular and an interim and a summative. I'm just trying to give you some hints on things to ask if they ever were in your head or anything else you can think of.
But you can also write questions
We-
to me and Anne and Heather.
You can send an email.
And these are some, I just want you all to know that there's a lot of professional development and around SAS and the modular assessments on our YouTube channel. So the 2 playlists where you can find these things are in school improvement and data coaching. And then here's the biggest.
We have 2 more questions.
Okay, I'm just going to finish this particular.
Go
one,
ahead.
and we'll go back. Heather runs the New Hampshire SAS Interim and Modular Assessment PD Program, and we work with 20 to 25 schools with the Department of Ed, thank goodness, to provide more individualized support and helping them to use the modular assessments routinely within each of their grade levels. So, you know, it can be virtual, it can be webinars. We sort of work with your building leader and your leadership team to decide how that would be best done with your specific school. If you are interested, I'm going to bring up Heather's contact information at the end. So it's pretty awesome. And because, again, it's sponsored by the Department of Ed, it's free for you. All right, what are our next questions? Let's see. I'm going to go to the chat. I'll read the questions out loud. How long should an interim take for students to finish? And can you have the same kind of data from the interim? Oh, okay. So I'm going to take a shot at answering this and listen closely, and Melissa. I think that the interims mostly would take about a class period somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes for any of them. And for the interim assessments, you can't get item level data. So it doesn't exactly do the same thing. Okay, so does anyone want to add to that response?
Yep. Yeah. The first, if we go back to the first question, what is the difference between an interim and a modular?
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
modulars are based on, that's all right, it was a different person. The modulars are based on the domain. So you pick numbers in base 10 fractions, or you pick editing. So you pick a domain and you give some questions based on that domain. The interims are longer and they cover not all standards, but they cover many more standards. So they actually do take a long time. They take longer. The interims are what was given at the beginning of last year. I guess
Yes,
it was the beginning of last year.
year.
It seems like so long ago.
And I'm sorry, I answered the question incorrectly.
So it does take a long time.
Yeah. Right, because I was thinking about the modulars.
It's the modulars that take a half an hour. Yeah. Yeah. And the data from them are not the same. It was, yeah, thank you. That was the beginning of last year. The data from the interim you don't get as much detail from them. You just get much more general information. Does that help anymore?
Yes. Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. So here's some information for you guys. Now, there's Heather's. If you want to talk to Heather about the modular 25 schools and be one of those schools, you can reach out to Heather here. There's me. I will connect with Anne. You can connect with Anne too. It's the same pattern, Anne.Mordecai@Demonstrated Success. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put both of these in, trying to escape. So that I'm going to put both of these links into the chat so that you can have immediate gratification and you can access your resource file. but also it would be very lovely if you could answer a couple questions for our feedback survey. All right, so there's everything right there in the chat for you. So feel free to go to the feedback survey and then feel free to visit your resource file, and you can expect an email tomorrow also with that info.
Thank you. We're still here answering questions if you have more. If your questions are too long to type, you can unmute yourself and we can hear you, and that might be easier way to ask a question.
All right.
Karen, you must have done a fantastic job because there are no questions. So that's
I
great.
think you answered them, Anne. All right, all. Have a wonderful day. Go forth into this lovely sunny world and be well.